Star Wars 7x7 episode 1756 today. We're going to talk about Rey's lightsaber and just how the heck is that thing still working. Here we go. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode, and we are here to talk about Rey's lightsaber. Just, what the heck? How is it possible that this thing is still working? So, here's what you need to know for the background of things. First of all, if you'll recall from the end of The Last Jedi, when Rey and Ben Solo, aka Kylo Ren, were fighting over that lightsaber, the lightsaber sheared. It actually broke in half. And when you watch The Last Jedi and you zoom in on the image of Rey with the broken lightsaber, you can see that the kyber crystal is actually split in half. It is sheared, if you will. Like, there is actually a piece of crystal that is on one side of the lightsaber and a big chunk of crystal that's on the other side of the lightsaber. So, oh yeah, that's not good at all. And yet, we see in the Rise of Skywalker trailer that the lightsaber appears to be brand new and there is a blue blade coming out of this thing. So, how is this possible? Alright, well, there's one explanation that would be about as clean and easy as anyone out there, and I'm going to take it off the table immediately. It's time travel. And if you're saying to me, time travel? They haven't done time travel in the movies. What are you talking about? It's not even possible. Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's been done in Star Wars Rebels during Season 4. And if you're not familiar with that or with Star Wars Rebels, then just trust me. It's been done in Star Wars, and it's a thing, okay? So it's possible, and yet I utterly and completely agree with you. They are not going to introduce this in Episode 9 after having 8 movies where time travel wasn't a thing. Yeah, they're not going to drop that in. So let's just take time travel off the table. Even though it is an established possibility in Star Wars canon, I don't think they're going to go that way. Now, we have to complicate matters, actually, because we have to consider what Daisy Ridley said during the Rise of Skywalker panel at Celebration Chicago. She said, and here's the quote, "The lightsaber that Rey inherited from Luke lives," unquote. And you might jump to the conclusion that she's talking about the blue-bladed lightsaber that we see in the teaser, but she might not be. In fact, she could be talking about Luke's green lightsaber, which we only saw in flashbacks during The Last Jedi, but it still does exist. And in The Last Jedi novelization, or the expanded edition as it was called, there is a scene toward the end where the caretakers on Ahch-To are gathering up Luke's belongings, and there is mention of his weapon, quote unquote, which would be his green-bladed lightsaber. That still exists, and it is entirely possible that Rey inherits that lightsaber from Luke. So, is it possible that what we're seeing in the teaser is really a fake? In other words, is there somehow going to be a change where they digitally substitute the green lightsaber for the blue lightsaber? I think that would be kind of an unprecedented situation. It doesn't seem like they would really pull a stunt like that. So, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily going to be that. Would it surprise me to see the green-bladed lightsaber show up in The Rise of Skywalker? Not necessarily, but I think we have to work ourselves toward a situation where the blue-bladed lightsaber restored is the answer. And here's where we're going to start with that. First of all, if you think about Kylo Ren's kyber crystal, you recall that it's cracked, and therefore it requires the quillions on the side to be able to channel the unstable energy. That is not the case with the lightsaber that we see in the trailer for Rey, and so that means that it has to be intact. So whatever piece got sheared off of this thing, it must have just sheared off cleanly. It can't have actually cracked the entire crystal. It must just be a clean break. And the whole thing about the lightsaber living, well, that could just be fun conversation and interesting way of putting things. But when you consider the fact that kyber crystals allegedly demonstrate something that is like a collective consciousness and have been described as being near sentience, at least according to Wikipedia and according to stories about younglings going to get their kyber crystals on the planet Ilum. Yeah, there is actually a living quality to a kyber crystal. And so you could definitely say that the kyber crystal is still alive and, just had a piece sheared off of it. And that works. It does work. But then you have to get to the question of, well, how is Rey going to get a new hilt for that kyber crystal? Assuming that, the saber she inherited from from Luke, it goes through the crystal. The crystal is alive. How do we deal with that other aspect of it, actually having the hilt to channel that energy? Well, there is an answer for that as well, and I will explain that one after the break. Stay tuned. Hey there. If you're enjoying all the coverage that I'm bringing you from Star Wars Celebration and what I do every single day for you at Star Wars 7x7, I hope you'll consider putting something in the tip jar at patreon.com/SW7x7. $1, $3.27, $5.01 or more. Honestly, every little bit helps, and every little bit is just as exciting as every other little bit. Please consider supporting me in the work of delivering Star Wars stories and interviews to you on a daily basis at patreon.com/SW7x7. Welcome back. So the answer to how Rey actually has a hilt for that crystal comes from Galaxy's Edge. And if you recall from some of the coverage that we did here on the show, and if you didn't catch it here, you might have caught it elsewhere, there is a place on Blackspire Outpost called Savi's Workshop, where some folks known as the Gatherers are employed. And this is a secret location. It's operated very under the radar. But this is the place where people go to get lightsabers in Galaxy's Edge. Like the really nice, oh yeah, we're gonna, ask you to pay hundreds of dollars for these. Well, at least 100 or more. But that's the sort of place where we're given to believe that this is a real life situation. In other words, when visitors go to Blackspire Outpost, this workshop is supposed to be something that actually exists in the Blackspire Outpost that exists in the galaxy far, far away. And as we go to Blackspire Outpost in Galaxy's Edge, we are entering a time period that is supposed to be taking place a few short months before the events of the Rise of Skywalker. So that means that that workshop was in existence in a critical time period prior to the events of the Rise of Skywalker, and that would be a place where Rey could go if she had a working kyber crystal, which is probably the hardest thing to get for this whole thing, and need pieces for repairing a lightsaber, or be able to show up with a busted hilt and say, hey, I've got the crystal, I got this busted hilt, I need a new lightsaber. These would be the folks who would be able to repair it for her. And so that is how I think we are going to see Rey's lightsaber be repaired and fully active as we see it in the Rise of Skywalker teaser. I'd love to hear what you think about that, if you think that's a reasonable explanation, or if you think there's another way that it might happen. Drop me a comment wherever you happen to catch this episode, if there's a comment section there, and if not, then just go to home base for the show at SW7x7.com. And that is going to do it for today. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. And as always, may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.